So apparently, according to Google Translate, the only way to sort of get it readily over here tonight's movie is by getting the Spanish version, which is El Gran Peque Vidalin, which apparently translates as the big little one goes to Lig. Oh, I'm just as confused.
Could have just called it El Angus.
Yeah, that would have been easier.
Which translates to the Angus. Makes him
Yes.
sound even more badass. Do you think anybody ever vandalized a theater road sign by just removing the G in the title?
Well, I didn't think about that till you just mentioned it, but now it sounds like something somebody would have done in the movie. I'm surprised they didn't.
Yeah.
God, that. Now I'm just. Now I've just got in my head anus, thongs, and perfect snogging. Cold open, everybody.
That's a totally different movie.
But a lot easier to find online. So, we're here with another weekend of Popcast Movie Club, but there's a twist. Obviously, this is the last day of the month, which means tomorrow's the day we've been waiting for. Talk about 10 years of Popcast Network tomorrow, but tonight we went ahead and found a special pick for this show to be our viewers chose. And the person that came up with this idea was Josie. So Josie's idea was to focus on 1995's Angus.
Which is something else that feels really, really overdue, given that we're 10 years in. I think the most this has come up is in I think it was 2000. I think it was early 2015 when The Duff came out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The May Williams movie, and I just spent that whole review being pissed off that it was just a really bad version of this, basically.
Accurate. Before we get started, I do want to thank everyone that gave a choice for Popcast Movie Club. And don't worry, just because your choice didn't get selected doesn't mean that we still don't have something up our sleeve for down the line.
I've already made it apparent. I'm totally throwing Harold and Maude into the ring at some point.
100%. So yes, welcome to episode 28 of Popcast Movie Club, the exclusive viewers pick episode on Angus. My name is Owen. Joining me as always for Popcast Movie Club, we have Chris.
Did he just pull an Ashley?
What?
I thought you pulled an Ashley. I thought your microphone went out.
Son of a bitch.
And then we have Ashley.
Yes, indeed. Howdy doody.
And I can't really see it from my vantage point, but you can see sporting a very swank Nickelodeon top. That's AJ.
Yeah, it has characters on the sleeves, too.
Oh, that's cool. I can say the same thing.
Makes you want to break out the PS1 and play Rugrats Search a Reptar.
See, I got my Danhausen pants here today.
Hang on.
In the Simpsons font.
I don't know.
Hanks is going to disappear off that screen soon. It will just be Danhausen saying no swearing.
Exactly.
Hanks will be replaced by somebody else that's got a really stupid accent. If I'd have remembered last year, I probably would have put Jared Leto on it because it probably fit.
I think we're past Danhausen because we were like 30 seconds in and we were saying anus already. So.
Oh no, I checked. We transitioned to. That was about 2 minutes in. We're all right. Also, they changed the rule so it's like 7 seconds. But you know, just to be safe. Anus.
So, once again, because I like to pick these podcasts up before they go off the rails, we're a GCW top. Another thing I did last week. Went to see Martin and Martin Short last night. Fantastic. 2 hours of really hilarious comedy. I saw way more of Martin Short than I ever wanted to see. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know. And if you don't, then, yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. Interesting conversation to be had. So, now we're going to talk movie club. And obviously, we've got a live chat tonight. And seems like we have a lively group tonight, as always. So we're going to kick off the show with some commentary from the chat. Brian says, before I give my thoughts, update status, I've seen After Sun, Living, The Whale, and all 10 Best Picture nominees, ending it earlier this afternoon with, we don't speak of that movie on this channel, Brian, which means the movie marathon of 2022 has been completed, and he'll be giving his thoughts in 2 weeks on the new episode of Pop the Question, because obviously tomorrow it's completely different. Josie chimes in, saw Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret today. The only reason I didn't get to that this weekend is because it didn't line up at all with my movie plans. So I'm going to have to pair it with Beau is Afraid, as long as it's still at my local Cineplex. And I knocked out what I like to call Blood Day, which was Evil Dead Rise, The Covenant, and ended it with Sisu. All of which I recommend for different reasons. Josie loved Margaret. It's very faithful to the book, which is good. Kathy Bates is in that one too. Yeah, it's very topical. Weirdly enough, go ahead.
I
Ashley.
do wonder with that film how well it's going to do over here, because nobody has a clue what that book is here. And they're pushing it as if it's like a grand release, and it's like, why?
What I do with some movies, you just judge it for the movie and don't judge it for the context because you don't know what it is. That's like I do with a television series nowadays. Could Angus be Margaret's father? Very unique. Weezer was asked to write a song inspired by the film. Rivers Cuomo read the script and wrote Wanda from a first-person's point of view perspective with lyrics such as, "My mom drives a big rig and my daddy's gay," which referenced the original script. And of course, "You gave your love to me softly." The shots in front of the school and football game were shot at Owatonna High School in Minnesota. The band playing is the actual high school marching band. Interesting. Movies are shot in the Midwest and set during the fall. It could really bring out the visual seasonal flair, if that really makes any sense, that this being an example. In the original short story, Angus's dad was alive, both of his parents were gay. In the movie was first shot, Angus' mom was straight and his dad was gay. But after the final cut, the filmmakers decided to abandon the gay parents for good. The beginning and some key scenes reshot with George C. Scott in his present role as Angus's grandfather. Original title... Go ahead.
You know what's really weird about that backstory? To my understanding, the reason they deleted the scenes about him having a gay dad is because there was one person at a test screening that started screaming homophobic shit.
Oh, God.
And that's why they decided to cut it.
Jeez.
And it's very telling of 1995 that instead of that person getting shamed and thrown out, they changed the movie to suit this person.
and 10 years later, and the polar opposite.
You know, which is really funny because for the most part, this movie is kind of a progressive goldmine.
100%.
For the most part. We'll talk about some of Troy's setbacks as we go.
We'll get there. Original title was A Brief Moment in the Life of Angus Bethune. After all, the name Angus is associated with bulls. Bulls, of course, Cinco de Mayo. Angus Parsnip Burger brings up, welcome back, Parsnip Burger. We knew we could count on you. Angus in U.S. is only a Warner Archive mod. Terrible quality. And Parsnip Burger brings up Angus thongs and perfect snogging. He likes that a lot. Hey, Tim. Josie says, final film credit of Monty O'Grady's. 262 credits, almost all of them unnamed characters. Observer, patron, onlooker, and a 1924 silent Our Gang comedy short.
Jeez. So that's 60 years.
Parsonburger asks, are we supposed to be sending in questions for tomorrow or what? You mentioned it but never posted them anywhere. It's on the Discord. However, if you want to just ask the questions directly tomorrow night, you can. It's fine. Once again, I throw out the caveat. If it has been talked about on here in 10 years, feel free. If you are a long time, even more so than Popcast Network, if you were watching back in the day when I was shooting videos on my iPod Touch for the first year of this channel, it has nothing to do with Popcast Network, you can ask about that too if you really want to. We can talk about Michael Shannon in Athens, Ohio, if you really want to go there. So,
make a note, everybody. Make a note.
George C. Scott from the movie Patton is a scene where an army wake-up call is played referencing the character. I was just thinking about his part in Hardcore, actually.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Did anybody else feel like it was very familiar to watch James Vanderbeek play quarterback in a blue jersey in high school?
He does want your life, just 10 years earlier.
Yeah, this movie is significantly less raunchy, but yeah, it felt familiar.
Part of me does feel, though, it is the prequel to Rules of Attraction.
I feel like Angus and Melissa didn't make it long, and I think it's because she would have got way too much of control.
I feel Rick basically evolved into
Sean Bateman.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes the best friend ends up becoming part of the equation and not what eliminates it.
Both my brother and Ashley's theories just made this movie so dark.
Well, maybe not, because Troy might be occupied with that girl that didn't know his name.
That's all that matters nowadays. The food fight.
The one that gave him his awakening while she was dressed as garbage.
Oh, that was the same girl.
It was absolutely the same girl.
It's an arc. It's a whole arc.
Oh man, I forgot it was an arc.
Josie talks about the food fight scene in the trailer not appearing in the movie, correct? When Angus's grandfather is telling him about the Irish swoon, the boom mic dips into frame and quickly goes back out of frame. I kind of vaguely remember that.
I've probably seen this movie 100 times, and I don't know if I ever noticed that.
Speaking of scenes that aren't in the movie, I've been watching old commercials on YouTube, and I saw a TV bump for Son-in-Law, and there's a scene where like Lane Smith opens the door and Crawl's like, "Hey, Dad," and it like zooms in on a tracking shot of him yelling "no," and I was like, that didn't happen in the movie.
No, it did not.
I wish it had.
If there was like a Hitchcock.
Right.
I'm trying to remember.
When I saw it, I went, "Where was this scene?"
I'm trying to remember if there's a film like a Hitchcock one where like the entire trailer comprises of nothing that's in the film, just to like bait and switch everybody.
The Old Man and the Invisible.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
I try to get through chat, and then it doesn't help because we keep getting interrupted. That's why the shows go so long. When Parsonburger says, I will be there 100%, I'm excited.
I'm nervous.
You should be. You 100% should be. I think I'm the only one on this panel that's as upfront, even though I'm secretive, unless you know. Did you just flip me off?
What?
It looked like you flipped me off. Like you were like messing with your glasses and looked like you flipped me off.
If that's how I swear, this must be not working.
The plum-colored suit Angus wears to the dance ended up matching the shutters in the door of Melissa's house. This was a subtle way of indicating that Angus and Melissa were more alike than he thought. Yeah, partially. Parsonburger says Adrian always looks blank.
I say so. Basically, she sees him, and it reminds her of home.
Maybe.
Hey, look! It's the front door. It's big enough to be the front door. Oh wait,
Dang it.
we've that's the deleted scene. That's in the TV edit.
I was gonna say Ashley just turned into Rick Sanford for a second.
Dear God. I'm gonna get to this chat eventually, everyone. AJ always looks swank, and I don't be Hillary swank, thank God. Parsnip Burger says. Oh, God dang it. So, Winter Ball could in some way classify Angus as a Christmas movie. Hey, Tim. Pear, you will be in the theater for 5 or 6 hours since Bo is 3 hours. Parsnip Burger, if you haven't noticed by now, I kind of talk about this thing where I kind of watch 3 movies in the same day so I can get the most out of my A-list. So I have 0 problems in doing this. As a matter of fact, I did this 3 movies, and Ashley remembers this, all at least 2.5 hours to 3 hours long, and watched the AEW pay-per-view that night.
In the same
went
cinema?
when the theater opened. This was a couple months ago. I went to 3 movies, and then I watched the AEW pay-per-view after it was over. So I was basically in a chair for close to 10 hours that day. This may be an obvious surface level read about what I like about Angus, how it brings up mental health issues like self-esteem and self-concept. Like it turned out Melissa struck with self-esteem too. Yeah. Crazy to think how sometimes you don't know what someone's going through until they tell you. Brian says, I don't take a shot. Where are you? There you are. I didn't know much about Angus, but I recognized the ending when Angus is walking Melissa home. Wow, the director directed Baby's Day Out.
Yeah.
Space Invaders and wrote the screenplay to Dragonheart. That's Patrick Reed Johnson. Oh no. Parsnip Burger says good because several questions are from the iPad Touch. Whew. I don't even want to think about some of those questions. God.
By the way, while we're on the topic of the director of this writing it, Dragonheart might come up in a few months. Just throwing that out there.
Oh boy. I'll still be here for a while at least. I will give a heads up. I have one question for AJ, says Brian. But I'm going to have Ashley read it. You'll understand why tomorrow.
So either it's about Owen, or it's got the words fuck, shit, or something that Owen won't say. Unless he's at a GCW show. Quick, get the replay. He probably swore.
Yeah, there's definitely video, especially on that dive at the beginning of that tag match. Anyway, maybe Melissa was traumatized from dinosaurs in Jurassic Park and worms and tremors.
Yeah, she's been through a lot.
Yeah.
She's a painter now, apparently.
Yeah, no wonder she got out of the movie business. She just went into sort of painting and like her own stuff and just cashing on the residuals. I'm guessing.
She saw the future and went ahead and retired so they couldn't drag her into the Jurassic World movies. I think that's what it is.
Dear God.
Smart move.
Josie says, which movie scientist would you like to see Angus work with? With the Richards connection, he could probably join Alan Grant. Angus could be an intern for Wayne Zelinsky. That's the first one that popped into my head.
I was going to say, we're going to find some way to bring up Wayne in. The Honey, I Shrunk the Kid meme continues.
Or speaking of last night, you just see any scene in Three Amigos has the word Rick Moranis, just cross your name out and there you go.
How's Rick Moranis connect to Three Amigos?
He was originally going to be Marty Short.
What were you saying, bro?
That was the original concept when Steve Martin wrote the script. It was supposed to be Rick Moranis, and they took Rick Moranis out and put Marty Short in. So that's the joke. So anytime you see, like, here's the script, anytime you see Rick Moranis' name, that's you. Josie says, if Angus were to write a scientific nonfiction book, what would it be called?
I'm still here.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Chaos theory.
I was gonna say I want Angus to work with the Ghostbusters. I think he'd fit in.
That would be interesting.
Oh yeah.
I could like that actually. Charlie Talbert was discovered while eating in a Wendy's in Lake Forest, Illinois.
Yeah, okay. So I got to cut it off here. Now that we've brought him up, I'm guessing it's based on the fact that he didn't exactly have a Hollywood appearance at the time.
Right.
But it's kind of a shame because if Angus was made today and somebody gave the exact same performance that Charlie Talbert does,
that's an Oscar-worthy performance.
Yeah, that's a star-making performance.
Completely.
It's crazy to me that he's only had a really tiny part since then. You basically have to play Where's Waldo to find him in the movies.
I would take it a step further and say if it got made today, somebody like him wouldn't even be cast. It would be somebody popular with CG and a fat suit.
I don't think so. The way this story was written, it feels like it's something that was just screaming, this is going to be something that's going to make someone's career or start someone's career.
Well, my brother just said now has me imagining this scenario where it would be like Austin Butler trying again for the Oscar after losing to Brendan Fraser. He's like, well, this is what I'm going to do then. And then that would be the Angus of 2023.
Parsnip Burger says, don't you always fall asleep during movies? Honestly, it's getting better. It really is. Hollywood's catching me a lot better lately than they have previously. 2023 movies, I haven't been able to nap as nearly as much as in previous years, thankfully. And honestly, even when, and AJ knows this, even when it's like loud, booming Dolby sound, if I'm gonna sleep, I'm gonna sleep. I don't care what it is. But being able to watch something like Elvis or Sisu and Dolby is that's like your seat's vibrating. You're not going to sleep through it. At least I didn't.
I don't know how much chat is left, but I'm actually really excited to talk about the movie.
I'm trying to get there. If you guys would shut up for 5 minutes.
Are you talking about chat shutting up or us? Or both?
A large fraction of this video has been you talking about your movie theater experiences. That's
10 years. 10 years. So apparently the service was lousy. Charlie started making jokes to the guy waiting for his fries. And of course, the guy was Patrick Reed Johnson. He told Charlie that if he thought he was so funny, you should audition. So he did. Angus doesn't have a Blu-ray release, Brian brings up, which you talked about before we started today.
Yeah, this DVD is the only one I know of that exists, the Warner Archive one.
Yeah.
There's also I don't know if it's a VHS cover or what, but there's one cover that's just like the Warner Archive blue border.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a picture of Charlie Talbert, Chris Owen, Ariana Richards, and for some reason the producer. I don't know.
That's the one we were talking about early on in his comments and chat.
Yeah, but yeah, that DVD is it was pricey when I got it, and it's still kind of pricey now. I've heard many people backing a Blu-ray. I remember way back in the IMDb boards, there was a big petition to get that DVD released. That took the whole movement. I have the VHS somewhere because I used to watch it all the time, and it used to be on TBS all the time. That's how I've seen this as many times as I have.
Sense. George C. Scott trivia: first actor ever to refuse an Oscar. He missed the ceremony because he was busy watching a hockey game. Joined the Marines at 17 in 1945. He couldn't see combat because the atom bomb ended World War II. Scott served with the Honor Guard in Arlington National Cemetery, decorated, and to the 1971 issue from Time magazine from March 22nd, Scott gained a reputation as a heavy drinker during this period. He found this grave detail extremely depressing. He did accept the Emmy for the Hallmark Hall of Fame in 1951. The 1971 production of Arthur Miller's The Price. And I think that's the end of chat here. Brian also says, or for AJ watching anything that has vomiting. I don't know. Chat's over. So
Yeah.
Up on that for the rest of the show. So AJ, you were very excited when I told you that this looked like this was going to be the pick.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can segue from the George C. Scott thing. Since he's first credited, we might as well talk about him.
Yes.
When me and my brother did our favorite actors video, he was on my list, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it back then. Obviously, since I grew up with this movie, this was my introduction to him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When he just seemed like he had the old grandpa role. But there was always something about him even back then. But then obviously as time has gone on, this was not just a throwaway role. This wasn't I'm in the last stretch of my career, I'll just do this small thing role. This is like a real role. And a lot of this movie's greatness comes from the fact and to think that Charlie Tower's just a kid they found at a Wendy's. I'd always heard that story. I didn't hear the rest of it about like the whole interaction that went through it. But their banter in this is like it's perfectly performed and perfectly written. This script is so good.
Oh yeah.
And this writer has just like what TV credits to her name? A few, like very little TV credits to her name. She wrote like 3 Laverne and Shirley episodes. And like 1 episode of a few other shows, and like that's almost it. And it's wild to me how well written this movie is.
It doesn't even have a Wikipedia page.
And some of the dialogue also, because the thing about this movie especially is I don't know if it's because I grew up with it, so it would have been one of the first movies of its kind that I ever saw. But by all accounts, you would think this movie would be dismissed because of being cliche. But there's just something about the way the story and the writing handles all of those moments. Where, like, you know that, like, I'm trying to figure out how to, without going into every single detail, but like you can almost see like Rick's gonna get some sort of comeuppance. He and Melissa are gonna probably get together in some way. You can see all this stuff coming. Even the death of George C. Scott, you can probably see coming. As a cliche, but just everything comes together so perfectly. But they also are subverting those kind of expectations immediately. Also, like you would think that the big comeuppance for Rick would be somebody punching him in the face.
Breaking his nose, of course.
And of course, it's such a genius move that Angus has been breaking his bully's nose from the beginning. Like it's a recurring event in both their lives that Angus punches him in the face or breaks his nose in some fashion. Yet Rick still manages to beat his bully as they grow up.
Yeah.
What's funny is like Rick's a persistent bully. Like normally in the movie you punch him in the face and they go away. This dude just keeps coming. He's got a hate boner for Angus, like I think unlike anybody on this planet.
Yeah, and somehow is able to keep sort of, I don't know if besting him is the right term, but he manages to be a successful bully despite having constantly been confronted their whole lives. It's
right.
It's a very interesting dynamic you don't really see. And I love the fact that, and once again, you could say like there's there's a whole cliche of he eventually beats Rick with words and not by punching him. But that's the thing, is the words are actually more. You would think they back themselves into a corner, because it's like, oh, what kind of comeuppance can Rick possibly have at the end that would stick if he's already been punched in the face so many times? And so they've made the scene where he confronts him with words about as big and powerful as they could have, to where the punches in the face do seem mild by comparison, because he just, by the end of the movie, he destroys him with 2 words. 2 words that probably hit harder than any of those nose breaks.
And that's what you have to do with a bully like that. The only way, I mean, you could break him in half if you really wanted to, but that's not going to stick. Sometimes it just takes being knocked down a couple pegs verbally to take someone down.
Yeah, because it's basically the cherry on top that, because obviously he does get punched in the face again by Troy.
Yeah, of course.
But by the time Troy hits him, he's already starting to leave the dance with his tail between his legs. And Troy just gets him on his way out.
And it's by accident.
And so I really love the way they do the bully dynamic in this. That's one of those things where it's like, it is cliche, but it's also totally a dynamic we haven't seen before.
Right.
And I can't really think of one we've seen since off the top of my head. That's my take on that.
Right.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
That's sort of like shown bullying in that light, sort of like long-term sort of bullying, despite, you know, standing up to it sort of thing. But then at the same time, you know, the comeuppance with sort of all the different intricacies of everything that happens with it. Yeah. Also, it's like, so nobody was suspicious when the one kid turned up with a broken freaking arm.
Yeah, I was trying to think. He basically, all 3 of them, Rick, Kevin Connolly, and the kid from Ghost Dad.
Yeah.
They used Troy as a punching bag. But I'm trying to think. It's weird. I've seen this so many times, but I have to really think back. When he shoves Angus down at the dance, is that the first time Rick physically attacks him?
Yeah, he has Dubots doing everything for him.
Yeah, because usually,
like
usually it's just like something sassy.
Yeah,
and then it's like, because I do have to admit, Rick does get a particularly sick burn in this. When he's handing Angus off to Melissa at the dance, and he makes the quality over quantity line.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to give him credit. That's a good burn.
Yeah.
But like I said, Angus ends up destroying him with 2 words by the end of it, and that's shows just how small Rick is.
Right.
And because they also do a really good job of setting up their dynamic, as far as it's not just bully and victim, but it's popular kid and unpopular kid.
Yeah.
And this opening scene with the football game, when Angus does the tackle and the ball lands in Rick's hands, like, not only does that perfectly set up what's going on here in general, but it's like it's the perfect representation of basically their entire lives. This one moment, on top of being a catalyst for everything else. And so everything comes back to how well written this thing is. It's crazy.
The only bit I didn't get was the underpants bit.
It's typical bully behavior.
No. I know that. I'm talking about when it was up there, you know, it looked like a big person's underpants. And then by the time it got down to the bottom and they were taking it off the flagpole, it was the size of the Grand Canyon.
It was his perspective from the humiliation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say it represents the amount of embarrassment.
I didn't know whose eyes we were looking at it from, because like... Although I do like the touch that it started like normal pants, and like as it was being brought down, you could see it was sort of like, you know, big pants, and then by the time it was the bottom, it was like the biggest pants you'd ever find. So even in that continuity, it was like as it was getting closer to sort of reality, the thing was looming bigger.
Yeah, it's just the way your mind inflates things. They took it very literally there, of course.
I can't wait the bloody prop person. Where the shit do I get pants that big?
So Josie chimes in with the principal, Lawrence Pressman, was also in American Pie as the coach.
That's right.
Yeah. So many people in this like went on to like do other like big things.
Well, Josie brings up a good point here. This was at a time in film and TV where bullies were just bullies. Writers didn't feel the need to give them too much depth. Where they just allowed bullies to be bullies, this would be a great film to show kids in school. This is what an after school or during school special should be.
Yeah, because because Rick doesn't have a backstory.
No.
But yet the way they changed it up was by using the dynamic and not really using like saying, "Oh, Rick does this because of this."
Right.
I feel it probably would have been like a Friday Night Lights deal for him, and that he probably gets like beaten the crap out of by his dad.
Yeah, he's got a Tim McGraw at home.
Because
you know, weirdly enough, I honestly feel the opposite. Rick comes off as somebody that has like entitled because he has like the silver spoon parents and things like that. I don't get the vibe that he takes it out because he's a bully because of that. I think he's a bully just because he's a jerk.
Yeah, he's like a spoiled kid.
Yeah, exactly. He's a spoiled brat.
He's like Troy from the Goonies.
Yes, exactly.
Why would you bully Brand?
Yeah, I feel like he had to, not to completely segue into the Goonies, but it's like it is. Troy did seem in that case like a very sort of an opportunistic bully. Because I feel like there's no way he would have confronted Brand like face to face. It was like, oh, I've got a car, he's got a little girl's bike. I'm basically saying Troy is a pussy.
Well, like you said, not to veer off too much, but maybe Brand was working out because Troy was better than him physically.
Oh wow.
We're gonna leave that can of worms closed to discuss another day.
That's a whole backstory I never thought about. Yeah, because Brand isn't really that. He doesn't really look worked out. It looks like he just started or something.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do we want? I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Do we want to talk about this as a progressive movie in 2023?
Yeah, we can go there.
I've got one thing. I did talk about how the one thing holding this back is Troy. But I feel like it can pretty easily be explained away by the fact that Troy is a horny teenager in 1995.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 years later, he had a movie where they made an entire premise around that fact.
Yes, this was 4 years before he was the sophisticated sex robot sent back through time to change the future for one lucky lady. That's right.
Yeah, and that very well
that could
still be Troy, and I wouldn't question.
Yeah. So yeah, we do get scenes in school of Troy catcalling girls, which is obviously a big fucking no-no now.
Yeah.
And particularly, the scene that really stands out is the scene where they have Melissa projected onto the screen, and they're just talking about her body. And is everybody really still, or did it freeze on me?
No.
Okay, because my cursor started spinning too. It freaked me out.
Okay.
No. Yeah, with like using like the laser pointer and everything, like point out all of the intricacies and everything. Like, no, God, no. 2023, no.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out where they got a single picture of Melissa in her cheerleader outfit in order to project this onto the wall. First of all,
Yearbook.
It looks like maybe it was stolen from like maybe a yearbook picture.
It's yearbook. As somebody who was on the yearbook staff, I know that this is a thing.
Would it be a whole page size of one person though?
You could make it bigger.
I mean, have you ever opened up the yearbook and seen the pictures of popular kids? They take up whole pages.
Yeah, accurate.
Yeah. For doing the most mundane thing. One of them, it's like, Ashley signed her name with a red pen. And it's like, cool, glad you gave a whole page to that. You got the chess club, science club, and National Honor Society all squeezed into one page, and half the names are missing because they don't fit.
That's correct.
This is getting.
No, I wasn't popular in
Red
high school.
pens are endangered species. That's why.
I was gonna say this is getting more and more specific. Is this somebody you know?
No.
Well,
No, not particularly.
To be fair, as someone who edited the yearbook himself, yeah, Chris is right. The popular kids get the biggest spreads, and that's how it works, because that's what we get brought, or we would have gotten brought back then, and probably still do to this day, pictures that we want to put in the yearbook. And sometimes you take the big pictures and they blow up the big pictures because they're really cool pictures, like action shots of sports and things like that. And then we have to put them prominently, whether we want to or not, because we're told to do that. And that's how you get pictures like that.
I mean, think about it. In the first Spider-Man, did Peter Parker take pictures of a nobody at the Science Center? I don't think so.
Yep.
Even as a nerd, he understood who he's supposed to be shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, and about and this movie really ingrained itself in my head because, interestingly enough, it has come up, even in adult life, it's come up that, like, I mean, obviously different contexts are going to have different meanings, but
Sure.
defining somebody as normal, and it's like because this movie got so ingrained in my head, it always sounded like an insult to me whenever somebody was called normal. And I'm assuming for the most part that's a good thing. Because
Yeah.
like I basically grew up like whenever somebody was described as normal, my first thought was Rick Sanford. Which is obviously a very negative connotation to normal. But I mean, yeah, there's people who can be like not normal and be like, alarming. But like I said, in this particular context, where somebody is defined as not normal for being themselves in a way that's completely harmless,
Mm-hmm.
but also, out of the ordinary.
Right.
Like I said, obviously, 2023 people might have a hard time looking at Troy that way because Troy certainly has weird tendencies, but like I said, also he was an awkward teenager in 1995. This is pretty much what we were looking at then.
Sure. I mean, he did go to military school with major pain. I mean, that's got to be bound to fuck someone up.
Same year too.
Yep, exact same year.
And I love that before he got his massive growth spurt by the time American Pie got here, I love that Chris Owen was so small. He plays the child Troy and the teenage Troy. Like they keep changing Angus's actor as they go through their whole lives up to high school, and halfway through, Chris Owen's just suddenly Troy.
Yep.
I don't know why I had this thought, but if they made a Christmas Story in the 90s, I totally see Chris Owen being Scott Farkas.
Yeah, there was probably a time before I figured out the years of these movies where I might have thought it was him for a while as Scott Fargus before I realized this was like 12 years prior. Something else. Oh fuck, where was I going? I wasn't done with George C. Scott either, but we were on the progressive thing. Um, did any of you three feel like, brother, you had a lot of friends? I know because they were always at the house, and I feel like you were a pretty popular group. But did the three of you have like outcast feelings? I don't know if I don't know how much different. Like, I'm assuming there's some big differences between U.S. high school and UK high school, but because U.S. high school feels like the Wild West. I don't know about U.S. high school, especially in 1995. But I mean, not that I would know. I was about to start kindergarten then, but still.
I did. That's not what I thought you were referring to when you referred to the Wild West.
Did you go much darker?
I did.
Oh god. No, that's 2023. We're in 1995.
Yeah, it's Wild West for 95. But no, my group, we knew we were out. There was no, did we have a feeling? We knew. As long as you're in the minority, you're technically an outcast. It's not till you gain the majority that you're not an outcast. You're always an outcast from somebody.
Yeah, I guess I saw it differently. Because obviously you guys were much older than me. Well, not much older, like 4 years, but it seemed like much at the time.
Sure.
But the way I always remembered it was the group seemed kind of eclectic. Was it as eclectic as I felt like, or not?
No, you're giving us too much credit. Give us way too much credit. Think back on that roster, and then come back to me and let me know if you still have questions why we weren't the popular.
I do know we're still in 1995 with this reference. Holy shit! I do remember you had two friends in particular, and we always made the joke that those two friends were basically the two guys that befriended Billy Madison in high school. That were. But yeah, so I guess it was being the younger brother that you guys seemed like. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a warped view. Sorry to disappoint 20 years later.
But I mean, that's still the point, though, is even if all of you were outcasts in a way, you were a big group of friends.
Yeah, it's together. And none of us really cared about being the popular person because popular people were boring and assholes.
And turned into the guy that you ultimately knew that tried to sue Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah,
and was ended up publicly humiliated in an Oscar-nominated movie.
Yeah, exactly. That could have been me.
Owen, do you have Angus-esque stories?
Not from a friend group way.
I was gonna say that, and also any you're willing to share, because obviously this isn't required.
Obviously the want for something that is unattainable has always been my Achilles heel in life. Honestly, it really has. So I feel more in tune with the Angus, Rick, Melissa triangle, obviously, because it's me we're talking about here. Friends, I had a few, not very many. Honestly, back in 1995, that would have been, 4 years before I graduated? So, junior high? Yeah, I had a little bit more friends in junior high, I guess. I mean, we're all big on watching WCW. So we were watching Nitro, and we were doing the Too Sweet in the hallway and everything like that, having a little NWO. I went to the YMCA for teen camp, and I had a little group of friends there. Yeah, we were outcast, but we were also I guess, popular by default because we were not the cool kids, but we had people that thought we were, so that was cool. Like we would basically, I guess you would say, we would kind of enlist younger campers to join our group. So we would have like a bigger group, so we had a bigger span of people that would like hang out and things like that because we weren't popular, but we were popular with someone, so that's all that mattered. But as always, it always comes down to whether I got the girl or not, and obviously that didn't happen. So that was another thing that I always take from this movie, especially right now, which I'm not going to say further any more than that. But yeah, this movie kind of hurt a little bit for many reasons, and one of them is super obvious to anybody that knows, and one is a little bit more hidden, so, and neither of which I feel comfortable talking about. So, needless to say, it was yeah, it there was a couple scenes. Now, granted, like the Mazzy Star, the slow dance scene, which I've heard that song so many times in so many different movies. It didn't give me like "Hear You Me" vibes from like Cinderella Story, because that's like the end all be all when it comes to that type of scene. I don't know why that song just gets me every single time, but it's close. Honestly, it really is.
It's weird to hear you say that because from growing up with this, I don't know how much you've. I'm assuming you'd seen this movie before, but I'm assuming you haven't like. You didn't have the attachment to the movie that I have. I'm assuming.
I remember, weirdly enough, the one thing I remember more than anything was I remember the dance, because obviously it's me. And out of context, weirdly enough, the one thing I remember is George C. Scott's death scene, where I remember the record player playing the bugles, and the next thing you know, it's just like, Grandpa, Grandpa. I remember that scene. I don't know why I remember those scenes more than anything else in this movie, but I do.
That's the first scene that always. I think that's one of the first movie scenes ever that got etched in my memory right away.
Yeah, definitely.
I've asked that because it's just so weird to me because the dancing to Mazzy Star scene is so iconic in my mind. It's really weird to hear you say Cinderella stories were. It's like really over the Mazzy Star scene in this.
Wow. I don't know. It's Hear You Me, and I guess you would say it's probably I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head. It's the song in 13 Reasons Why that gets me like hardcore like upset. That's, I guess you would say, for me, that's kind of what Mazzy Star is for you.
I think as far as the scene where he finds Grandpa dead, the scene that sticks with me more, even than the record player, is when he goes to the park, lays down the chess piece.
How beautiful is that scene?
That
by the way, you know who that guy is, right?
Not off the top. He looked familiar. Was that? No, I don't. It couldn't have been. Was that? It looked like John Kramer to me when I first saw him.
That is Irvin Kershner, the director of Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, nice.
And if I remember correctly, he has no lines.
No.
No, because Angus doesn't even speak to him. That interaction's all nonverbal.
Yeah, and it's crazy how him not having any lines is setting up the whole time. It's setting up that one moment. There's actually a few things in here that feel like foreshadowing. Like it sounds insensitive, but it makes me wonder every time I hear it. When Angus is crowned king, like when they have the ceremony, they announce that he's going to be king.
Right.
And they're talking about the fact that Melissa has to dance with him. Does it always felt like foreshadowing to me that Angus says Melissa's probably somewhere puking her guts out.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose?
Sure it was. Without knowing that at the time, it makes sense that it would be.
Yeah, I was trying to when we were having the progressive conversation, I was like, there's one more thing I wanted to say, I can't remember. It's because it was addressed in the chat already about how they approach the fact that she has something that she doesn't like about herself, even though she seems perfect. And that whole conversation we had. So yeah, that was how I was going to round out the progressive conversation, but we didn't.
So I got a couple more things in chat. Josie says a powerful scene is when Troy tells Angus, "You think you're the only one who feels different." When Troy felt just as insecure for his ears.
There's a lot of acting Chris Owen has to do in that scene.
Yeah, totally.
Because not only does he get that scene that really like rounds out his character, but this is after he's already betrayed Angus, and Angus doesn't know yet. And this is like the first time he's talking to him since that happened. You can see that he knows what he's done when he's trying to have a normal conversation with him.
Sure.
And so it's like, I feel like it's part of him breaking there was Angus seemingly not understanding what else he's also going through, but it's also the kind of self-loathing has kind of pushed him to this point also of what just happened.
Josie says maybe the Wanda doll from the same company that designed dolls in Lars and the Real Girl.
Oh God.
It's probably related to Yoshihiko.
Yeah, nice.
18 times.
It's
DDT Iron Man Heavy Metalweight Champion.
Good God.
While we're on the topic of emotional scenes and this kind of really emotional portion of the movie where everybody's kind of like George C. Scott dies and then like everybody kind of reaches their own emotional breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else I wanted to single out who and you kind of inadvertently shouted out already. Anna Thompson.
Yeah.
Who plays April.
Uh-huh.
Anna Thompson, I don't know if anybody knows her by name, but most of her career has been coming in for one scene and crushing it and then leaving. She's the mom in The Crow, the drug addict that has to like find her way afterwards and like do that breakfast scene that's really beautiful in this tragic way. Unforgiven, obviously, she's like the whole catalyst for the events of Unforgiven, if I remember correctly. I think she's the one that gets cut up at the beginning of Unforgiven, isn't she, and sets the whole plot off.
I believe so.
She had in Bad Boys, she has one scene where she's revealed to be somebody and have knowledge, and she has this amidst Bad Boys, this massive action comedy by Michael Bay. She has this big emotional scene that basically becomes the catalyst for the climax of the movie. She's the woman in Melanie Griffith's apartment at the end of Something Wild, the one that says, I think my landlord is screwing me. She's very valuable and has this big scene. Like, the scene before the wedding is supposed to happen is good, but a scene that's always, like, broken me is when her and Angus run into each other after the fact and her watch goes off.
Yep.
And it's like, she can do really powerful things with like very small screen time. It's basically her whole thing. And there's the whole Superman analogy also, where I was talking about how well written this is, where, like I said, it seems like it would be a cliche thing, but I don't know, the George C. Scott line where he says, you can't be brave if you're indestructible,
yeah,
is really, there's a lot of substance in that.
And Superman just kind of set them up to have like a interesting speech given about him in the movies, doesn't he? Because you got this and you've got Bill's speech in Kill Bill.
Yep.
Yeah, he's endured in pop culture for almost 100 years. Could have something to do with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say Superman does get a lot of shit for people saying like, oh, he's kind of bland and there's really nothing to him. But it's like when you see the way he's dissected by people that really look into that, you can see where the richness of the character is.
So Josie says perhaps the doll in Lars and the real girl is Wanda's sister or cousin or daughter or niece. Okay, which of the following supporting actor nods in 96 would you swap out with George C. Scott?
I'm sorry, I can't change any of those people. We had this discussion recently. I love that lineup too much. I would probably put this in screenplay.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
That's the next question.
Do you think that maybe like in a military history, speaking of characters being connected, do you feel like that the grandpa and Little Miss Sunshine might have gotten a lot of influence from Angus's grandpa if they were ever to interact?
I definitely want to believe they knew each other.
Sure.
I don't know. Edwin Hoover might be a little too aggressive. I know it's weird to say somebody might be too aggressive for George C. Scott. It's like unfathomable, but then again, we only really know Ivan, I think his name is.
Yep.
We only really know Ivan as like a grandpa and a father. We're like he's in his like his. We don't really know what kind of person he was in his youth, apart from the fact that through very subtle moments, we're under the impression that he knows. I would say he knows a lot about what Angus is going through, much more than he lets on. But there's also that really strong scene he has with Kathy Bates, where Kathy Bates really opens his eyes in a way that were clearly not open before.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make you wonder where he's come from and what he's gone through, since he's obviously successfully built his whole screw 'em catchphrase has really pushed a lot out of the way for him. But yeah, that Kathy Bates scene between the two of them is really strong. It also makes you realize that for a movie that might seem like a throwaway teen comedy in the 90s, this movie has 3 Oscar winners in it.
And you
were
were talking
about like 20 seconds.
You were talking about being able to make magic in small amounts of time. How dare Kathy Bates be as good at that as she is?
Yeah.
She's like a maestro of it.
Yeah, and in many genres. Like, she can knock one dramatic scene out of the park, and she can also do Rat Race. And it's...
Yeah. And she could be dramatic in a comedic sense with The Waterboy. She could be comedic in a dramatic sense. She can do it all.
She's Helen Kushnick. That's all you need to know.
And about Schmidt, Alexander Payne basically owns this kind of territory.
Yeah.
Comedic, dramatic, comedic.
I just feel like, when you see everybody like Meryl Streep always getting her flowers and stuff, sometimes I feel like Kathy Bates is very over.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to watch is when she won her Emmy for American Horror Story. And her reaction is so human because she's fucking Kathy Bates. But she looks like winning was the last thing she expected to do that night.
So it's interesting that you bring up the foreshadowing and everything like that. And granted, it's like this is the polar opposite of the such. You bring up the screw 'em catchphrase, and I like how Melissa uses it at the end too.
Yeah,
because that's kind of like maybe it's a little bit of Ivan that is getting to her, and that's the reason why that happened the way it did.
It's Ivan's use the Force Luke moment.
Yep.
And hey, the director of Empire Strikes Back is here. Makes perfect sense.
Exactly. You did mention original screenplay. What would you take out for Angus?
Well, Usual Suspects 1.
Yep.
I know Toy Story was in there. I know Nixon, I believe, was in there.
Yep.
What were the other two?
Braveheart and Mighty Aphrodite.
I could take out at least a few of those. I would definitely have this in there. Now, mind you, I personally would also have like Seven and Heat and stuff in there, along with Usual Suspects. But I would probably put this in there, yeah.
Actually, if this movie were made today, more of the students would be on his side because of inclusion movements and more people against body shaming.
You know, I'm kind of writing something that's in this, it's much darker, but it's in this vein that Angus is in.
Mm-hmm.
The high school life thing and the cruel people that are in high school and how that goes and being that age in general. Especially for people that are like in outcast groups. And I was starting to think that we're about to get really real here. In particular, there is a. Yeah, I'll talk about this plot because fuck it. I have a plot in this story that I'm writing about two girls who fall in love but are not ready to come out, and then a bully outs them, and the repercussions from that. When I started writing this a few years ago, I thought, well, this is a little dated because the school would not revolt against them the way that I have them doing it when the bully outs her. Because we're too far from that now.
Sure.
But when you really read the news lately, if you're in the wrong place, that would absolutely still be the case.
Yeah. Sadly.
Where if you got outed, you would be in danger of, you would be in almost physical danger in some cases.
For sure.
And obviously emotional damage, no doubt. So yeah, like I said, it really depends on where this story is set. If you made Angus now and set it in a certain place, Angus would have so many friends. Angus would be surrounded by friends and probably be the popular kid or close to the popular kid. He'd be like Daniel Franzese in Mean Girls, only straight. Because even they were supposedly outcasts, but not really.
Sure.
But set Angus now in another place, and like I said, add the deleted factor from the story of him having a gay dad. Just even him coming from that, he would be a target.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. So in a way, we're less fucked, but we're definitely still fucked. So yeah.
Interesting.
And like I said, it was a complicated feeling because I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to change this script and set it up farther back in time. And then it was like, oh shit, no. I can just write it exactly the way it is right now. Just change the setting.
Yeah. Josie does mention further that Angus being elected Winter Ball King would be considered a statement for body type inclusion if this took place today. Like AJ mentioned, in some places, yes.
And instead, in the movie, it's literally Carrie is what happened.
Yeah.
That's how they tricked Carrie to get on stage, and they dumped pig's blood on her, was they rigged the voting.
Yeah.
By the way, I love the misdirect there when Rick's talking to the guys, and he's like, hey, I think we all know who it is. And it's like, oh yeah, I think I got the votes I wanted. And you think he's talking about himself.
Nope.
And it's like, at that time in the story, we don't realize the setup has already happened. So I thought that was really good misdirection there.
Josie mentioned.
When I rewatched, I picked up on it when he looked at the flyer and then looked at Angus.
Oh my god, that is really blatant, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's weird how that just goes by.
Kathy Bates also selling squirrels in Rat Race. Josie brings up specifically with the squirrels emoji. Love the emoji.
Classic scene.
Oh yeah. The part where one of Grandpa Ivan's friends is playing chess reminds me of the Jerry's Game short from Pixar.
Yeah, every time I see that short, I always think of Angus. Like, not even the other way around. I think it's Angus, and then, oh, that reminds me of that.
Josie mentions Angus's grandpa being good friends with Grandpa and Rugrats. I can see that.
Yeah, that I can imagine for sure.
100% trading war stories. I'd say keeping Stu awake at night, but that's not going to happen because Stu's always busy making random food in the middle of the night anyway, so it doesn't matter.
It's chocolate pudding at 4 in the morning.
Yes, it is.
I'll take it a step further. I could see Angus's mom being friends with Lil and Phil's mom.
Yeah.
Betty, yes, definitely. Oh my God, she basically is Betty.
Once again, I made this very clear in the past. Obviously, we talked about Catherine O'Hara in the past has always been what I envisioned my mother to be in a movie. And then 80 for Brady came out. My mom became Sally Field. But honestly, this is what my mom would have been back then. 100%.
Yeah, I can.
Chris, back me up on this. Do you know my mom?
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate assumption.
Without driving the truck, but working at Kmart, that's about 100% shoot right there.
I can see your mom delivering the monologue that she does to George C. Scott in defense of Angus and talking about like what he goes through.
My mom has defended me to so many people, it's not even funny. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. The grandpa and Hey Arnold, Josie brings up as well.
Yeah, Phil.
Not a show I really gravitated towards, actually. Never really watched Hey Arnold.
It's a bummer for you.
I think the last thing I watched in the Nick verse would have been Rocko's Modern Life.
And you stopped early.
Well, what do you consider after Rocko? Would have been the Hey Arnold time?
In my mind, well, remember, a child's mind, 2 years is like an eternity, but
Sure.
It feels like in my mind, Rocko and Hey Arnold were pretty far apart, but maybe not. Maybe 4 or 5 years apart, maybe.
I mean, I did like Real Monsters, and I didn't watch Wild Thornberries or anything. I was a Rugrats guy. I was a Rugrats guy pretty much till the end. I lived Doug, 100%. So it's like,
wasn't Angry Beavers in there somewhere?
I watched a little bit of Angry Beavers, but not much.
Dude, I love the Angry Beavers.
I was an early Ren and Stimpy guy too.
Yeah.
Ren and Stimpy so good.
I feel like Ren and Stimpy and Rocko are pretty much the exact same era. At least they are.
Yeah.
This is all in my head. I'm not sure how accurate these memories are.
Well, don't forget, I graduated from Nickelodeon way before SpongeBob started, and the only acknowledgement I have of SpongeBob is conversation from you guys and the musical.
Yeah, because SpongeBob started in '99. I do remember that.
That's the year I graduated from high school. So I mean, I was probably watching. I don't know. I was probably just watching wrestling at that point. I don't think I was watching anything else at that point. I didn't start Disney stuff till like the mid 2000s.
Yeah, because my Nickelodeon era pretty much ended. I think Drake and Josh was the end of my Nickelodeon run.
Never watched. I was into Disney by then, 100%. I never watched Drake and Josh.
How did we get here?
Jesus.
Oh, we were talking about Hey Arnold got us here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
One line I remember from Jake and Josh that always cracks me up is whenever the delivery guy drops something off, and I think it's Josh Peck says, "Have a good day," and the delivery driver says, "Don't tell me what to do."
Yeah, that was Josh that got that.
What would a book by Angus's grandpa be called, says Josie?
Is Screw 'em too obvious?
Screw 'em makes the most sense, honestly.
Or Superman Isn't Brave.
That's good.
I like that.
That's a title you'd really want to pick the book up.
Yeah.
Like, Superman Isn't Brave, really? Let's see what this guy thinks. And then his explanation is perfect.
Tim brings up the comment from earlier about the boom mic and the crew being visible halfway through the opening credits, but also talks about in the opening football scene when Angus makes a tackle, the football falls to the ground, but it's still soaring through the air in the next shot. Wow.
They only had $1 million budget. That's pretty small.
Back then, it would have been like $1 billion. Speaking of Kathy Bates, remember Chris told AJ Bates could get an Oscar nomination for Richard Jewell, says Brian. Yeah. Josie has not seen About Schmidt.
What was that?
Go ahead, Chris. You cut off there.
Oh, I said, I called that by just a set photo. That was all I did.
No, Josie's never seen About Schmidt.
Is that... Oh, damn. I was going to say, you should do a Pain marathon. That's what... when I need to get caught up on a director's movies, I just marathon all the ones I haven't seen. But that will require you to watch Downsizing, which I cannot recommend. So do it at your own caution there.
I wanted to like Downsizing more than I did, obviously. Have yet to see About Schmidt. The full question is, but would George C. Scott's character be friends with Jack Nicholson's character?
Speaking of Jack Nicholson, all was right in the world because he was at a Lakers game the other day playing.
I saw that come across my Twitter feed, and I don't have sports fans on mine, so that's a weird one to come across my Twitter feed, but it did.
So basically what you're saying is that's how big of a fucking deal this is.
Yeah.
Accurate.
Yeah.
100% accuracy right there.
I would say, you know what I think Ivan and Schmidt would do is... Bradley Cooper told this story where I think it was Howard Stern asked him what it's like hanging out with De Niro.
Mm-hmm.
And Bradley Cooper said, when you hang out with De Niro, you both sit in recliners and you don't say anything at all. That's how you hang out with De Niro. And he said, and it's perfect. I kind of feel like, because Warren Schmidt is really reserved.
Yeah.
And Ivan is chatty, but Ivan also seems like the kind of guy that might be able to clock the Schmidt, or they'd be like him and his chess buddy, where the comfort in their friendship is Ivan can talk all day, so the other guy doesn't have to. That's why I like hanging out with talkative people, so I don't have to.
You have a wonderful time with Otto. Yeah, I think, is there any further conversation we want to have about Angus?
The only thing I didn't mention that I wrote down was just a line that's funny to me.
Which one?
Which is just at the very beginning when Angus is telling us his story through narration. And our introduction to Rick is the narration saying he was just basically going through his life until he got expert feedback. And that expert feedback is little Rick Sanford saying, Angus Bethune is a fat kid. And it's I just love that that's his introduction. And it says everything about him already.
Pretty much.
It says everything about both of them. The fact that Angus could sarcastically call that expert feedback, and that's Rick's whole personality, basically.
Certainly.
It's like you said with the dynamic. It's interesting because Angus doesn't fear Rick; he just annoys him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's so much more afraid of Melissa than he is Rick.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, how relatable. Their scenes also are very relatable, where he could as a 32-year-old. I can look at the scenes now between him and Melissa, where it's like when they're backstage, when they're getting ready to go out at the dance, and he responds to everything with just, yeah, well, when she's saying things that are pretty easy to respond to, but it's like you remember being in that moment, and you're like, yeah, it makes sense, just literally not being able to say anything or just repeat one phrase.
And it takes her saying something that he never thought that he'd hear her say to snap him out.
Yeah. That's a good reaction by him.
So yeah, I think that might be our show tonight. Obviously,
one more thing I wanted to bring up around that scene. Did you notice that like she talks about how she has like the bulimia and like is like doesn't tell anybody about it, Did you notice that like it's kind of given away too that she's wearing a mask whenever they turn the spotlight on? She has a completely straight face. As soon as the spotlight's on her, she smiles and keeps that smile the whole way.
I don't know that I ever noticed that.
Yeah, next time you watch it, look for that. Whenever the spotlight gets on them, she looks nervous. She's completely straight face. As soon as the spotlight kicks on, she smiles, and it's like nothing's wrong.
Yep. Sometimes people can turn on a facade in case they have to, because they feel that they need to, whether they do or not.
I'm going to say it one more time. I guess this will be my closing thought. I'll start.
That's fair. I was going to let you go last, given the fact that you've had the most to say about everything tonight.
I said the performances obviously are so good.
Yeah.
And I said, and it's so higher above what you would expect from some typical teen comedy, especially from the mid '90s.
Sure.
But the writing in this movie is what I really keep coming back to. And like I said, how it blows my mind that she's only like written for a few TV shows, and those are like most of her credits, is wild.
So I guess we'll go with Chris next, because I feel like the people that have talked the most should be the ones that go first in this case, since AJ went first. So we're going to go with Chris next.
Final thoughts are just, I'll say that it's a lot like Anna Thompson and Kathy Bates' performance. It accomplishes a lot with the little time that it has.
Okay. Ashley, I haven't heard you say much. You talked about as much as I do in this show. So, thoughts, comments, opinions to take us home? Nope.
Oh, no.
That's why I said nope.
So we're sure he hasn't been talking this whole time. We just didn't realize it.
Oh, God.
No, I haven't sort of really been mentioning too much, because it's sort of like, it was nice to sort of just see and sit back like for the first time, because God, it's never showing on British television. It's that scarce anyway, and because it's like private, I love the fact that like it's in private ownership and it's not getting a home media release. But in America, it's available via 74 different streaming platforms, either via purchase or like Tubi or whatever.
Yes.
But in the UK, no, nothing. Because I think it's got enough of a sort of hold. We didn't even mention the fact we had a random Rita Moreno cameo. What the hell was that about? Yeah, it was really enjoyable. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna like make it an annual watch or anything, but it's something that I'm gonna make sure. Because shoot, I had to get this illegally. I'm gonna be honest about this. Because
that's fair.
No other way to. But I'm keeping it on the hard drive. I'm not like deleting it off. It's going there with Who Killed Captain Alex as something that I will watch again and still enjoy.
Now I just imagine, just as soon as you say that, a couple of cops come in, carry you away, and there's nobody to end the stream.
Yeah. Oh, hello. FBI, what are the FBI doing here? You're in the country. Piss off. But yeah, you know.
What's funny is you think they're there for Angus, but they're there because he has Captain Alex.
Yeah.
You owe the creator 80 cents.
I was the one that dared stream and got the copyright strike for Kissed by a Rose on a fucking panpipe. Damn!
We didn't get a strike, thank you. We got a claim. It's okay. In 10 years, we have never got a strike on this channel, thankfully.
I know Paramount got pissed about me doing Beverly Hills Cop or something.
Yeah, that's correct. Disney wouldn't let me monetize the videos I shot on the fantasy on the cruise ship, but I'm not surprised at that at all.
Didn't we also get something for my shirt that's just the MGM logo?
Yeah, yes we did. I'll take the last words on this. This is a movie that has always been in the back of my mind of one I needed to revisit again. Picked an interesting time to revisit it. It does hit home in a lot of ways. It's definitely something that I've enjoyed throughout the years, and it was nice to revisit it again. And that's a great thing about Movie Club, is it gives me a chance to actually revisit movies and also learn about new movies or watch things that I should have watched years ago. So yeah, I'm happy you picked this, Josie. I really am. And when we do another viewers pick down the line, I hope you throw out another suggestion. So shout out to Josie for coming up with the idea to use Angus tonight. So, and again, shout out to everybody that put in their picks for viewers' choice. We selected Angus, but there's so many great ones, and like basically was already said, it's not like we're gonna forget your choices because they're probably gonna end up somewhere down the line. Actually, I guarantee you that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Josie, you keep having the weird way of dropping movies that I really want to talk about on here when we do QAs. So don't think that I don't forget about that too, because obviously there's a lot of ones I want to talk about that don't have verses, so I can actually do that. So that's your show. And I want to thank everyone that's here tonight in our live chat. So we're going to talk about how tomorrow's going to go in a second. But before we do, Chris, put yourself over.
Instagram, Chris Hunt's Toys. On YouTube, Figures and Flippy Shit Wrestling Podcast. New episode just went up today at DJ. Not really much coming up, really. We ended up canceling going to Toy Vomit. So there'll be other plans in place, but hopefully we'll get something going. Toy Ohio's in June, so we might head up there, and then there's another convention in August.
Ashley will be returning to the network sooner rather than later with new content. You're going to probably see a lot more of Ashley in the near future because, necessity.com. So snacks, gaming content, various other things. What'd you say, AJ? Cutting off the outro there.
I can tell you, now that it's streaming on Paramount Plus, I rewatched Scream 6. So since it's really fresh in my head, it's probably going to be the first one reviewed on what day are we looking at? Tuesday? Are we looking
Tuesday,
at?
Yeah. May 2nd.
So it'll be, the first video will be Scream 6 Renfield, which I'm very excited to talk about, and Murder Mystery 2 will be the first video.
2 out of 3 ain't bad anyway.
And then the one after that, which will probably be a few days later, is going to start with Megan.
Okay.
And then we'll hopefully start hitting these 2023 releases until we're caught up.
As we're bouncing around a little bit on the outro, Ashley can be found on Twitter at AshIsMyNameUK. So again, more of his content coming. AJ, of course, mentioned that movie reviews are coming very soon. Versus is coming back sooner rather than later. And who knows, maybe sometime before the year's over, we'll get some new segments on this channel. I'm not going to explain anything further than that. Just stay tuned.
And one of those new segments might have literally been getting worked on today.
Nice. Very cool.
And you were probably going to mention this anyway, but I just want to segue from things I'm really excited to talk about. If you want to remind people what the next movie club is.
Yeah, episode 29 of Movie Club, I believe, is your pick, isn't it not?
It's my brother's pick.
It's your brother's pick. That's right. So it's ironic that I'm wearing black and purple, because when I think about this movie, that's all I can think about, and that's Mystery Men is coming to this network.
I am so excited to talk about Mystery Men. I can't tell you.
AJ, should we put over what we decided on before we went live that we were going to do in June?
Oh yeah, you might as well.
Yeah. So I think the date's June 18th, I think, that Sunday.
there is going to be another co-branded review video. This time, it's going to be The Flash. And AJ and Chris are teaming up to talk all things Batman and whoever else is in that movie. And that's going to be taken care of in June.
And if you know me, I'm always down to talk about Michael Keaton Batman. I mean, look behind me.
And it sounds like we're probably good on me and you teaming up for some videos that will come out in October.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun as well.
Yeah, hopefully I can have some information about October and September in the near future. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Follow me on Twitter at Sir Owen Disney and check out all the various content on this channel. All the playlists. It's very easy to find things. Tons of new sip and snacks have been out and are still coming. I have a ton of voices content still coming, and yeah, lots of great stuff. So if you've stuck around this long, thank you again. And tomorrow you will be rewarded with the biggest QA we've ever done, talking about this channel for 10 years. So, Josie, you mentioned something to me earlier about if there is a question, if this is we can ask like movie related questions. AJ has a caveat on that, and it makes sense. If it pertains to us personally, then yes. But a basic QA will be doing that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really strict either way. I'm just kind of letting you take the reins on that. But yeah, if you wanted to do the whole "are we ousting movie questions altogether" thing, I would say no. If they fit whatever Owen's criteria is, go for it.
So yeah, all the cool content coming to the channel very soon, and yeah, that's your show for tonight. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, AJ, Ashley, and myself, the original three, are going to be here one more time to talk a non-traditional QA show. If it's been covered on this channel in 10 years, it's fair game. And like Parsnip Burger brought up, if you really want to talk about Welcome to My World, my iPod Touch videos from West Virginia and Ohio, feel free to, because it's technically counts too. It's not Popcast Network lore, but it's Suro and Disney YouTube lore, so it counts. So we became Popcast Network on 2013, May 1st, and 10 years later, that's what we're doing, this QA show. And then 2 weeks from then, we got a traditional QA show on Sunday. And then, of course, Monday will be Popcast Movie Club for Mystery Men. Or flip that. I think it's reversed. Yeah, Movie Club is going to be Sunday, and QAs are going to be Mondays. Unless something changes.
Question about tomorrow's show.
Yes.
Do you need a fourth?
I wouldn't have an issue as long as you are able to be at the show. You're more than welcome to.
I can work it, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we're going to have some fun tomorrow night. So if you have questions for me, Ashley, AJ, or the times that Chris has been on this channel, but up before and all the way to now, ask them.
I always forget how long my brother's been here, because when my brother did his first video on this channel, the channel was only 2 years old.
Yep.
Which is wild.
Video?
What's that?
Was that the Batman video?
Yeah, the Burton versus Nolan video.
Yes. So yeah, lots of cool things tomorrow, so stay tuned. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The four of us, we're going to be waxing poetic about Popcast Network and its history, so that should be a fun night. That's your show for everyone tonight, and thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, live chat. You guys and girls out there are super awesome. And of course, it's not a show of mine unless we plug intellectual property available in all brick and mortar stores and also available for streaming. Stream water parks. Go see water parks. Tour just started the other night in Anaheim. Cannot wait. June 2nd. It's not too far away. I'm going to spend $400 on merchandise. That being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. And until 10 years to the day tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all we got to say about that.
When you paused, I thought we froze.